Welcome back. Like usual, we're doing another fun project on Overland Engineer. If you're new to the channel, I'm Zach, the Overland Engineer. On this channel, we like to explore topics and design within overlanding, especially DIY stuff to maybe save a little bit of money, as well as many areas of tech that's just a personal interest of mine. And the channel ebbs and flows depending on my interests, so the topics at hand may be varying at some times, but consider following me on Instagram if you want to stay up to date on the channel. Otherwise, definitely subscribe to the channel if you like my content. So enough of that, but don't mind me vacuuming. I'm just going to give you a quick rundown of the video and the reasons why I decided to change my platform build. The link to my old build is in the top right. So like you've seen in the old platform video, I tried to maximize storage under the sleeping platform. I added a dog platform, and that was basically it, a couple cubbies and little storage nooks and crannies. Since designing that platform, I've added aftermarket crossbars that allow me to mount a storage box and traction boards to my roof. So I've basically dedicated the roof box to recovery gear and any sort of tools that I carry along on the trail. And then basically the remainder of the inside now can just be for living. All the extra space that was taken up in that hatch space of my old platform build has now been moved to the roof. And so with that in mind, stick around and check out my video on how I kind of changed the functionality inside the platform so that it was more usable and also better storage design for living inside of the car while we're out on the trail, rather than just being like a storage solution for tools and recovery gear. So if you're just mainly interested in the platform and what I sort of did, that's towards the end of the video, so you may want to skip ahead. Again, thanks for checking out my channel, and if you like content like this, consider subscribing. So let's get on with the video. So the first step in making a good drawer is making sure all of your plywood pieces are nice and square. And a good way to do this is to go to Home Depot and have them help you cut parts of the plywood with their big plywood saws. And so that's what I did here to get some of these sides to be extremely straight. Then the rest of it you can do with a table saw or a channel saw, I think they're called, track saw. And then we're gonna basically just glue them all together, and since the wood pieces are square, it should assemble nicely and not cause too many problems when sliding in your enclosure for the drawer. So I just wanted to show a little bit of footage of me using this little Craig pocket jig that I have to drill pocket screw holes. And so I'm gonna drill a bunch of holes for my pocket screws and then use some wood glue to connect all the pieces together. So So what I didn't show on camera was I assembled all of the divider pieces in the sides of the drawer by putting some wood glue down and then using one of those foam stain brushes to spread the glue evenly. And then I put the pocket screws in. So basically that grid is now what's sitting on top of the piece of plywood. So now I'm going through and I'm painting, or at least just spreading out that wood glue well with the foam brush. And then once I get all the glue on where I want it, I'm gonna flip it over and press it down on the plywood, and then with a little bit of pressure put in all the pocket screws, and that'll really help snug the two pieces of boards together and help that wood glue dry and strengthen that joint. Next, I installed the 28-inch drawer slides that I bought from Vidania, I believe the company was. I just found a place to buy reinforced drawer slides online for a decent price, and I read some reviews and they seem to be okay. So these are locking 250-pound supporting drawer slides. So I bought the 28-inch length, and basically, depending upon how big your platform is, I allowed there to be like a half an inch behind the drawer inside the enclosure. So those are the dimensions that I kind of went off of, and then depending upon how thick your drawer is in comparison to the enclosure, you may want to mount it higher or lower. So this is about where I chose to mount the drawer slide, and then this is basically where I decided to put the portion that connected to the actual. Before putting the drawer in the truck, I decided, it's a good enough time to do a little bit of vacuuming. So I cleaned out under the platform, because who knows when I'd clean out under the platform in the near future. So I figured I'd quick vacuum it while everything was opened up. And then once I was done cleaning it, I grabbed the drawer, which had the slides all attached to it, and tried and attempted to put this into the truck. However, with the old platform design, there was just a big square and the hatch was inside that square. So my thought was, well, maybe the drawer slides and anchoring the three sides of the platform would be enough structure along with the piece of plywood on top that the drawer really could slide freely in those new drawer slides, and there shouldn't be a whole lot of problems. But I couldn't have been more wrong. The drawer slid awful. As you can see here, I'm like struggling to push the drawer in. After a couple of days of kind of playing around with that drawer, it just never worked right. It was always stuck. It slid really badly, and so I just decided to break down and build a new enclosure with the drawer that I had. So let's check out that enclosure because it worked way better. As I prepped the enclosure sides, I tried to sort of guess as far as the height of the channels for those drawer slides. So I tried to give about a quarter of an inch to an eighth of an inch of space under the drawer for sliding over that bottom piece of plywood. And then I did, rough measuring to figure out where I should put the weight supported drawer slide on each side of my wooden drawer. So that's what I'm doing here, is I'm just trying to pick a good spot to put those slides. One thing I will recommend is don't have any part of the slide mounted where any two pieces of plywood join. Sometimes if they don't join perfectly, you will have this uneven surface where it tilts the drawer slide ever so slightly, and this can really cause problems when it's rolling through the track. So really avoid that if you're trying to mimic this setup. Here's another quick look at the drawer. So basically there's a drawer and then there's a part on top where you can put this big linoleum covered, not linoleum covered. You can put this big, and I put some lacquer on it so it's a little easier to clean. It's got some sawdust on it right now. So that will slide into the enclosure. One of the final steps in building this enclosure was just borrowing some of the old parts from the old enclosure. So once I felt like I had made some pretty good progress on building the drawer enclosure, I switched gears and decided to disassemble some of my old platform. So here I'm just taking apart the sides, I guess, where there was those little parts that kind of close off the back of the platform to the little cubbies. So I needed to borrow some of the brackets used there. So I'm just disassembling that, and then I got right into doing some carpet upholstery to just finish off this cover so that you're not snagging yourself on any sort of wood slivers, and it just finishes it to make it look like a better, more professional product. I think basically everyone mentions it, but make sure to use spray adhesive under the carpet. This really helps so that you don't get ripples after you've put down the carpet. The staples work well to hold the carpet from being ripped off of the enclosure, but as far as sort of those micro movements that might cause rippling, the glue really helps to keep those to a minimum. And so pick up some sort of spray adhesive. One thing that I did realize here is this was an old can of spray adhesive. In my experience has been they're basically single use. So buy a big can if you need a lot, and buy a smaller can if you don't need too much.
Alright, so I've got my drawer completely installed in the truck, and I just want to do a little walk around just to kind of show what it looks like once it's sitting in the trunk. So guess we'll get this rubber out of here. So what I did is I kept one door on this side, and I used some little angle brackets to mount it up there. And I took out these side compartments here because what I noticed is it was incredibly hard to pull it out of the trunk if I ever needed to adjust something on it. So I took out those front parts. So now when I flip this up and I take out that little crank in there, the little turnbuckle, I can pull the whole entire thing out straight from the trunk without moving it around, anything. It's just like picking up a box. So that's pretty awesome. And then if you flip this up, this doesn't lift anymore. I screwed it completely down, and I turned this into a drawer. So basically, a little shout out to the Sea Boys. When I first built the drawer, I had some issues with the weighted drawer slides, and so I used this as a handle to pull. I just put my finger in there and pull it back, but it did not work very well, and I ended up ripping it. So I just screwed it into place, kind of like a patch. So, and since I downsized on the sides from the 1.5 inch thick boards to 3/4 inch plywood, I actually had some extra space on the sides. So this side I left a little gap just in case there's something longer or wider that I need to stand upright on this side of the vehicle. And then over here is where the other turnbuckle latches down, and then dog bowl for Otis, and my basketball fits in there perfectly. So this little area back here is set up pretty awesome. And then if we walk around to this side, I hope the audio is not too bad. And then if we walk around to this side, there's those two turnbuckles in the front, just like how the other one was. So it kind of changed some, it kind of didn't. I'll show some pictures, but what I had to do is I had to shim the front part of this platform. I had to shim it about 1.5 inches, which is like a 2x2, because originally my whole design for this was to put the drawer into the previous hatch compartment area. So I was trying to keep that previous build entirely the same and then just put a drawer in, but it wouldn't stay square enough. So I had to build like an actual box enclosure. And so this box enclosure is about 1.5 inches taller than that front part. So in order for my whole platform to stay level, I had to put on my old 2x8, and then below it I have two little 2x2s to just provide some extra support, and also to bump right up next to this little divider here. And then the next platform here, I'm just gonna put some 2x2s under it, and I'll show you how I'm doing that. So essentially I've got my other platform part here, and I just cut some 2x2s to length and shimmed all the legs. So it's not too complicated, it's just a little extra step. Ended up not being that inconvenient. I will say that when you put 2-inch screws through these, they tend to split easily. So I would definitely recommend pre-drilling your holes with a drill bit. So yeah, I think this will actually work out just fine, and I'm so excited to have a drawer. With my new setup as well, I have basically a, let's see if I can do this one-handed. That's it. There. So now with this new setup, I've got a coated board here that's like a great counter area to work on. So now I have like this portable table that pulls out, which is great. And then I'm gonna keep like all my cooking. And clothes or those sorts of things in this back drawer, because essentially all my recovery gear I'm just gonna keep in my box up on the roof. So it works great. I've got a bunch of space. I can open this up when the bed is set up in there. So yeah, this is gonna do just fine.
Thanks for checking out my channel. I really appreciate the support that you all show me, and the continued subscriber growth that we're having. I really hope that shows that I'm creating content that you all enjoy. So if you like the video, or if you at least like Otis, give the video a like.